The alien market was crowded, full of noise, dust, and fear. Chains rattled as weak voices whispered stories. Every alien there had heard the same tale. Humans were monsters, humans ate alien flesh, and if a human caught you, your body would never be seen again. Among the crowd stood a small alien girl, her skin pale and glowing faintly under the market lights. Her silver eyes darted nervously, her thin arms trembling as she tried to hide behind other captives. She was young, far too young to be in such a place, but fate had dragged her there, the traders shouted, showing off their captives like broken dolls. The girl listened as older aliens whispered beside her, "If a human buys you, pray for a quick end." Her heart pounded, her body cold. She had been told these stories since childhood. Humans were devourers, never merciful. Now she would face one herself. From across the market, heavy boots echoed. The noise silenced the crowd. Everyone looked toward the tall shadow moving through the dust. It was a human, his face partly hidden under a hood, his eyes scanning the cages with a sharp gaze. "Three-eye," traders bowed slightly, both eager and afraid. "Human buyer this way," they said, voices trembling. The girl shrank back, pressing herself against the bars. Her breath came fast. She knew her end had come. The hooded man stopped in front of her cage. For a long moment he said nothing. His eyes stayed fixed on her. The silence made her tremble even more. "Open this one," the human finally spoke, his voice deep but calm. The trader laughed nervously. "She is small, weak, not useful." "Open it," the man repeated, his tone sharp like a blade. The lock clicked, and the cage door opened. Hands grabbed her, dragging her out. She stumbled forward, chains pulling on her wrists. The human looked down at her, his expression unreadable. Her mind screamed, "This is the monster, he will eat me." The trader handed him the chain. "Yours now." The human took it, but did not pull her roughly. He only said, "Come," and walked away. The girl followed, her steps shaking, her heart heavy with terror. Every moment she expected sharp teeth, the tearing of flesh, but nothing came. Instead, they left the market. The noise faded behind them. Night air surrounded her, cool and silent. He led her to a small camp outside the city walls. There was a fire burning low and a simple bag resting nearby. The girl waited, tense, ready for pain. But the man dropped the chain and said, "Sit." She did not understand. Was this part of the game? Was he fattening her before the meal? Her body shook as he pulled something from his bag. It was not a weapon. It was food. He placed a small plate in front of her, bread and fruit. Her eyes widened in confusion. She had expected blood, knives, and screams. Not this. Her throat was dry. The man looked at her and spoke softly. "Eat." She froze, staring at him. Her mind screamed, "It is a trick." But her empty stomach ached. Slowly, carefully, she lifted a piece of bread. Her hand shook, so much she almost dropped it. She sniffed it, her eyes darting toward him. The human did not move, only watched, silent. Finally, she took a small bite. The taste was real, simple, but filling. Her chest tightened, a strange feeling rising inside her. Why was he feeding her? Her people had said humans only brought death, but this man had given her food, not pain, not chains. Still fear clung to her heart. She whispered softly, almost unable to speak. Why feed me?" The man did not answer at first. He only looked at the fire, his face hidden in shadows. Then his voice came, low but heavy. "Because you need it." Her silver eyes blinked, confused. That was not the answer she expected. Her hands trembled as she held the bread tighter. She could not tell if this human was her savior or her doom, but one thing was certain. He was nothing like the stories, and that truth alone left her shaking. The girl sat near the fire, her thin arms wrapped around her knees. Her silver eyes never left the human, not even for a moment. Her heart still raced, unsure if he was feeding her out of kindness, or if it was only a cruel trick before the end. The bread in her hand tasted real. The fruit was sweet, yet fear still sat heavy in her chest. The human moved with calm silence, his hands busy with the fire, his hood casting shadows over his face. Every motion of his felt strange to her, too careful, too controlled, as if he was hiding something. She had heard whispers in the market. Humans fatten their prey before they eat it. Her body trembled at the thought, but her stomach betrayed her, urging her to eat again. She tore another piece of bread, her eyes fixed on him, waiting for the moment he would strike, but the strike never came. Instead, he placed another small plate in front of her, this time with roasted roots warm and steaming. "Eat more," he said, his voice quiet but firm. She froze, her heart pounding. Why was he offering more food when she had not even finished the first plate? Her people had warned her all her life. Humans are liars, their kindness hides fangs, their gifts are poison. Yet the smell of the roots made her mouth water. Her hands shook as she reached out, half expecting him to grab her wrist. But he did not. He only sat back, letting her take it. She tasted it carefully, chewing slowly. It was simple food, but warm, real, filling. Her chest tightened with confusion. Why would a human, one of the feared devourers, give her food when he could, have taken her life so easily? Finally, unable to hold the question, she whispered, "What do you want from me?" Her voice cracked, weak and trembling. The man looked at her for a long moment, his eyes dark beneath the hood. Then he said, "I want you to live." The words froze her more than any chain could. She blinked, stunned, her thin frame stiff. Live? No human had ever spoken such a word to her kind. Was it a trick, or was he truly different? The fire crackled between them, the night air heavy with silence. The girl's thoughts spiraled, her fear battling with the strange warmth in her chest. If he wanted her life, he could have taken it already. So why was she still breathing? Her trembling voice returned. You don't eat us?" The man's lips curved slightly, not in cruelty but in something softer. "No," he said, his tone flat. "Honest? That is a lie they told you." Her breath caught. A lie? All her life she had been told humans were monsters. If this man was telling the truth, then everything she believed was broken. Still, she could not trust so easily. She whispered again, "Then why take me from the market?" The man leaned back, his gaze fixed on the flames. For a moment he did not answer. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight she could not understand. "Because no one else would." The words made her chest ache. She remembered how the traders laughed at her weakness, how other buyers ignored her as useless. She was nothing to them, a fragile creature not worth a coin. But this human had chosen her, not to hurt her, not to mock her, but to save her. Her mind spun, unable to make sense of it. Her people would say she was foolish to believe. Yet here, under the stars, eating food given freely, she felt something she had never felt before: hope. The firelight danced in her silver eyes as she watched him. He was still a stranger, still dangerous, but his words and actions did not match the monster she had feared. Instead, they painted a picture of something far more dangerous. A man who could break the chains not just on her wrists, but on her heart. She shivered, not from fear, but from the weight of what she was beginning to feel. The human glanced at her, his eyes softer now. "You should rest," he said. "Tomorrow will be harder." She hugged her knees tighter, watching him in silence, her mind filled with questions, her heart filled with confusion. But for the first time in her life, she thought maybe, just maybe, humans were not what she had been told. As the fire burned low and the night grew colder, she lay down, still trembling. But this time, she was not trembling from fear. She was trembling from the strange truth that shook her soul. The human had not eaten her, he had fed her. And that one act left her shaking more than any threat ever could. The morning light broke over the camp, painting the sky in soft orange. The girl opened her eyes slowly, the smell of smoke from the dying fire still in the air. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then she saw him. The human, already awake. Sharpening a small blade with steady hands, her chest tightened, fear rushing back. This is it, she thought. He fed me yesterday only to make me stronger for the meal today. But the man did not even look at her. He finished with the blade, placed it back into his bag, and then handed her a small piece of fruit. Eat, he said simply, his voice calm. She hesitated, her stomach growling in betrayal. Carefully, she reached for it, her silver eyes locked on him. Again, nothing happened. No attack, no cruel trick, only food. Confusion swirled in her heart like a storm. Her people's voices echoed in her mind. Humans are liars, humans only pretend, humans feed you before they strike. She whispered under her breath. It cannot be true. It cannot. As they traveled that day, moving through dusty paths and broken ruins, her doubts only grew stronger. Every time she stumbled, he slowed his pace, waiting for her. When her chains rattled too loud, he adjusted them so they would not cut into her skin. These were not the actions of a monster. And yet, the stories of her people screamed inside her head. Do not trust, do not believe. He will show his true face soon. Later that day, they stopped at a ruined stone wall, half covered in vines. There were other captives hiding there, eyes wide and filled with fear. When they saw her walking beside a human, their whispers rose like a storm. Poor child, he will eat you when the sun sets. One alien hissed, do not trust his kindness. Another spat, humans fatten their prey. Their voices wrapped around her like chains heavier than the ones on her wrists. Her chest burned with doubt. Had she been blind? Were they right, and she was just a fool following death willingly? The man said nothing to their words. He only gave her water, his face unreadable. The other captives glared at him, fear and hatred mixed in their eyes. None of them believed in his kindness, and their words gnawed at her heart. That night, as they rested by another fire, she could not stay quiet. Her voice shook as she asked, why do they say these things about you? About your kind? The man's hand stilled, his gaze lost in the flames. Finally, he said softly, because fear is easier than truth. His answer only deepened her confusion. She wanted to believe him, but her people's warnings clashed with his every act. How could she trust a being that everyone called a monster? Later, when she pretended to sleep, she heard him whisper to himself. His voice was low, heavy with sorrow. I must protect her. I cannot fail again. Her eyes opened wide, her breath caught. Protect her? Not eat her? The words shook her even more than the food had. What had he meant by again? Who had he failed before? Was she only a replacement for someone else he had lost? Or was she truly worth protecting? Her heart wrestled with the questions all night. Every whisper of the captives told her to fear him. Every act of his kindness told her to trust him. She felt caught between two worlds, one of terror, one of hope. When the fire burned low and the human's silhouette leaned forward in thought, she hugged her knees tighter, her silver eyes shimmering in the dark. She had never been so afraid, yet never so desperate to know the truth. If he was truly a monster, then she was already doomed. But if he was not, then he was something far more dangerous. A human who could change everything she believed, and that thought alone made her tremble under the stars. Not with fear of death, but with fear of a truth she might not be ready to face. The path grew darker as they moved deeper into the ruined city. Tall stone buildings leaned like broken giants, their shadows stretching long across the cracked roads. The girl walked close behind the human, her silver eyes scanning every corner with fear. Chains still clung to her wrists, light enough now to move, but heavy enough to remind her she was not free. The city was not silent. Distant voices echoed through the air, sharp commands and heavy boots marching on stone. Alien patrols, searching, hunting. The girl's heart raced. She knew what would happen if they were caught. She would be dragged back to the market or worse, and the human, no matter how strong, could not fight them all. As they neared a ruined archway, the sound of boots grew louder. The man raised a hand signaling her to stay low. She crouched behind a fallen wall, her small frame trembling. Through the cracks she saw them, armored soldiers with glowing eyes scanning the shadows. Her breath caught. Her chains rattled softly. She pressed them against her chest, praying they would not make noise. One soldier stepped closer, his head turning. The girl felt panic claw at her throat. Any second they would see her, and then it would be over. Suddenly, a hand covered her mouth. Her body froze, but then she realized it was him, the human, pulling her gently closer into the shadows. His body pressed against hers, shielding her completely. She could feel his heartbeat, steady and strong as if he was not afraid. The soldier's gaze lingered, then moved on. The patrol passed, their footsteps fading into the distance. Only then did the man release her, his hand falling back slowly. She gasped for air, her whole body shaking. Her mind screamed, he could have abandoned me, left me, but he didn't. When they continued forward, her fear changed into something heavier, something she could not name. Every step she took, she kept looking at his back. This human had just risked his life for her. Not for food, not for gain, but simply to protect. It made no sense. And yet it was real. Later, they reached an old checkpoint where 2 patrol guards stood. The only way forward was through them. The man pulled her hood up to hide her glowing silver eyes. "Stay close," he whispered, his voice calm. Her legs trembled as they approached. The guards blocked the way, their weapons gleaming. "Show your papers," one barked. The human handed them a worn card, his expression unreadable. The guard studied it, frowning. Then his eyes fell on the girl, her chains rattling slightly. "What's that?" the guard demanded. The girl's heart leapt, her voice caught in her throat. Before she could speak, the man stepped forward, placing himself between her and their gaze. "She's mine," he said firmly, his voice sharp like steel. "You will not touch her." The guards exchanged looks, one of them smirked. "Why protect such a weak thing? Worthless." The human's eyes hardened. "Worth more than you know." The tension in the air was sharp, the girl's heart hammering so hard she thought they would hear it. Finally, the guard tossed the card back, waving them through. "Go then," he muttered. They passed, the danger fading behind them. The girl's knees nearly gave out when they were safe. She looked at him, her silver eyes wide with disbelief. He had stood between her and death again. Why? What made her, a fragile alien, worth his risk? That night, as they rested near the edge of the city ruins, she finally spoke. Her voice cracked but clear. "Why do you protect me? You could have left me to die." The man looked at her, his face lit faintly by the firelight. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, slowly, his answer came, heavy with truth. "Because I won't lose another." Her breath caught, confusion and curiosity twisting inside her. Another. Who had he lost? Was she a replacement for someone else? Or was there something deeper, something she had yet to understand? Her heart wrestled with questions she could not speak. But one truth was already clear. This human was nothing like the monsters from the stories. He was something far more dangerous. Someone who could shatter every fear she had believed, and that thought left her trembling. Not from terror this time, but from the weight of trust slowly growing inside her. The night was quiet, the ruined city far behind them. The girl sat close to the fire, hugging her knees, watching the human as he worked. He was silent, sharpening his blade again, his face hidden under the hood. The crackling flames cast shadows across his features, making him look both dangerous and tired. Her heart was heavy with questions. She wanted to believe he was different, that he was not the monster her people spoke of. But doubt clung to her like chains she could not break. Why protect her? Why risk himself? Why not abandon her when it was easier? Her silver eyes fell to the bag beside him, worn and dusty. When he stepped away to gather more wood, her curiosity burned too strong. Slowly, with shaking hands, she pulled the bag closer. Her chains rattled softly as she opened it, Inside were folded papers, maps marked with strange symbols. There were sketches too, alien villages, trade routes, even military camps. Her breath caught, her heart pounding. He's a spy, she thought, or worse, a hunter. Her hands trembled as she pulled out one paper. It was a drawing, carefully done, showing a girl, not much older than herself. The face was different, but the silver eyes were the same. Her body went cold. Why did he have this? Was she only alive because she reminded him of this other girl? The sound of boots on the dirt made her freeze. He had returned, his tall frame blocking the firelight. His eyes narrowed as he saw his bag in her hands. She gasped and dropped the paper, stumbling back. I wasn't, she stammered, fear rushing into her chest. The human bent down, picked up the drawing, and looked at it for a long moment. His jaw tightened, his eyes darker than the night around them. You shouldn't have looked, he said quietly. Not in anger, but in pain. Her breath came fast, her voice weak. Who is she? For a while he did not answer. Finally, his shoulders sank and his voice came low. She was someone I couldn't save. The girl's chest tightened, her silver eyes wide. His words carried weight, sorrow heavier than chains. He looked at the drawing again, then at her. You remind me of her? Her heart twisted, part fear, part sadness. So she was right. She was only alive because of another. Her people's voices screamed in her mind. Humans use you, humans lie, humans cannot be trusted. She stepped back, her voice shaking. Then I am nothing but a replacement. His eyes sharpened, his tone firm now. No. The firelight glimmered in his gaze as he stepped closer. You are alive, and that makes you worth protecting. The words shook her, cutting through her doubt. But before she could speak, a sudden crash split the night. Figures burst from the shadows, armored, and armed enemy soldiers, their glowing eyes fixed on her. One shouted, "There! The runaway and her human thief!" Her blood ran cold. She had no time to think, no time to question. The human moved fast, grabbing his blade, his body placing itself between her and the attackers. Steel clashed, fire sparks flew. The night filled with roars and screams. The girl crouched low, chains rattling, her heart pounding so hard she thought it would break her chest. She saw him fight, his blade flashing in the firelight, his movements sharp and fierce. Every strike he made was not for himself, but for her. He bled, but he did not stop. He groaned in pain, but he never let them reach her. One soldier lunged toward her, his claws stretching out. The girl cried out, but before the strike could land, the human slammed into him, blade cutting through. The soldier fell and the human staggered, blood dripping down his arm. He turned his head, his eyes locking with hers. Run, he commanded, his voice harsh, desperate, but her legs would not move. She could not run, not now, not after seeing his blood spill for her. Tears stung her silver eyes as she clutched her chains tighter. He had lost someone before, someone he could not protect. And now he was bleeding, fighting, risking everything for her. In that moment, her fear shifted. She no longer wondered if he was monster or savior. She only knew he was fighting to keep her alive. And the truth of that shook her deeper than any lie ever had. The forest swallowed them after the battle, shadows thick and cold. The girl's legs trembled as she followed the human deeper into the trees. Her wrists ached from the chains. Her body bruised from falling, but she did not complain. The memory of soldiers chasing them still burned in her mind, their cries echoing in the night. The human stumbled once, blood dripping from a wound on his arm. Her silver eyes widened in fear. You're hurt, she whispered. He shook his head, pressing forward. Not now, we keep moving. But she could see the pain etched in his face. Every step looked heavier, every breath slower. At last he led her to a clearing where broken stones marked the remains of an old outpost. He lowered himself against a wall, breathing hard, his hand pressed against the wound. The girl dropped to her knees beside him, panic in her chest. She had never cared for anyone like this before. Not even her own people had ever risked their lives so recklessly for her. Her hands trembled as she tore a piece of her torn cloak. She pressed it against his wound, her silver eyes glistening. He winced but said nothing, only watching her quietly. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Why do you keep doing this? You bleed for me? You suffer for me, but why?" He leaned his head back, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. "Because you deserve to live," he answered simply. Her chest tightened at those words. No one had ever told her she deserved anything. Not food, not freedom, not life. The kindness in his voice hurt more than any chain. As the night deepened, the cold crept into the clearing. The girl shivered, her small frame shaking violently. The human noticed, pulling off his jacket and draping it over her shoulders. She froze, staring at him. "But you'll freeze." He only gave a faint smile. "Better me than you." Her throat tightened, her heart pounding. She pulled the jacket closer, its warmth making her tremble more, not from cold, but from the strange feeling inside her chest. For the first time, she wanted him to survive, not because he protected her, but because she could not bear the thought of losing him. The fire crackled weakly, shadows dancing across the ruined stones. They sat close, neither speaking, both listening to the wind howl through the forest. For a moment it felt almost safe, almost like she belonged somewhere, but safety never lasted. A snap echoed in the dark, branches breaking under heavy boots. The girl's blood ran cold. The human tensed, reaching for his blade even with his wound. From the shadows emerged armored soldiers, their glowing eyes fixed on them. The commander stepped forward, his voice deep and cruel. "Hand her over, human, and we will let you live." The girl's breath caught, her chains rattling as she stepped back. Her heart screamed in terror. She looked at the human, his face pale from blood loss, yet his grip on the blade did not waver. "No," he growled, his voice fierce despite his weakness. The commander sneered. "You protect her? She is nothing. A broken little creature, not worth your life." The girl's chest ached, tears stinging her eyes. All her life she had been told she was nothing, and now the enemy spat the same words. But the human's answer shattered the chains of doubt inside her. "She is worth more than any of you," he snarled, stepping forward, placing himself between her and the soldiers. His voice carried fire, and for the first time, she saw not a monster, but a warrior standing for her. The soldiers raised their weapons, the commander's glare sharp as a blade. The girl trembled, torn between fear and something far stronger. She wanted to run, yet her feet refused. Her heart screamed, "If he dies because of me, I will never forgive myself." The standoff stretched in the cold air. The fire flickered low, casting long shadows over the clearing. The human bled, yet stood tall, his blade ready, his eyes locked on the enemy. The girl clutched the jacket tighter, her tears falling silently. She knew the next moment could decide everything. Her life, his life, their bond, all hung by a single thread, and as the commander lifted his weapon, barking the order to strike, the girl realized she was no longer just afraid of humans, she was afraid of losing this one. The clearing exploded with noise as the commander shouted the order. Soldiers surged forward, weapons gleaming in the firelight. The human moved first, his body weak but his spirit unbroken. He swung his blade with fury, meeting the first attacker. Head-on, steel clashed against steel, sparks flying into the night air. The girl cried out, her voice lost in the chaos. She pressed herself against the wall of stone, her chains rattling with every tremble. The soldiers were too many and the human was already bleeding. But still he fought, each strike powered not by strength, but by determination. Every move he made was a shield for her. Every drop of blood spilled was to keep her safe. One soldier broke past him, rushing toward her with claws raised. Her heart froze, her silver eyes wide. Before the blow could land, the human roared, tackling the soldier to the ground. He struck fast, his blade sinking deep. But another blade slashed across his side and he staggered, blood pouring down. The girl's tears blurred her vision. She wanted to run to him, to help, but her legs were frozen. Fear and pain tore at her chest. She had always believed humans were monsters, but the only monster here was the one bleeding to keep her alive. The commander stepped forward, his voice booming. You cannot win, human. Give her up and I may let you crawl away. The man spat blood, his voice firm. Never. He stood tall, his body shaking, his blade raised once more. His eyes burned, with fire, the fire of someone who had already lost too much and refused to lose again. The soldiers circled him, ready to strike. The girl's chest ached, her voice breaking as she cried out, "Stop, please stop." But no one listened. Her tears fell hot against her pale skin. She saw him sway, his wounds too deep, his breaths too ragged. If nothing changed, he would die. Something inside her snapped. She pushed herself forward, chains dragging, her small frame stepping between the human and the enemy. Her voice shook, but it carried through the clearing. If you want him, you must go through me. The soldiers paused, startled. The commander sneered. Foolish child. You are nothing. Her silver eyes blazed, brighter than the fire itself. No, she cried, her voice ringing with strength she did not know she had. I am not nothing, and he is not your prey. The human's eyes widened behind her. Even through his pain, he reached out, his voice, hoarse, you don't have to. But she cut him off, whispering, You protected me. Now I protect you. Before the commander could strike, the ground shook with the sound of approaching riders. From the trees emerged her people, aliens clad in ceremonial armor, their banners glowing under the moonlight. The commander froze, his soldiers faltering. The girl's people surrounded the clearing, their weapons raised, their voices fierce. For the first time, she saw them bow their heads, not to her, but to the human. One of the alien leaders stepped forward, his voice deep and filled with awe. It is him, the protector, the one who saved our queen long ago. The girl's heart raced, her eyes wide in shock, her mind spun, pieces falling into place. This was the truth he had carried, the secret in his silence, the sorrow in his eyes. The commander snarled, realizing his mistake too late. He tried to order his men to fight, but they were already retreating, their courage broken. The clearing grew quiet again, except for the crackling fire and the human's ragged breathing. The girl turned, dropping to her knees beside him. Her hands shook. As she touched his bloodied arm, tears streamed down her face. I thought you would eat me. I thought you were a monster. Her voice broke as she pressed her forehead against his chest. But you saved me over and over, even when it cost you everything. The man's hand, weak and trembling, lifted to rest gently on her head. His voice was faint but steady. You were never prey, you were always worth saving. Her body trembled, her silver eyes shining with tears. For the first time she believed, truly believed, that humans were not monsters. This one human had changed everything. The aliens around them watched in silence, their respect clear. The girl held on to him tightly, whispering, I was wrong about humans. Her voice cracked but carried the weight of truth. You are the reason I am alive, and I will never forget. The fire burned low. The stars glimmered above. The human bled but smiled faintly. The girl shook, not from fear, but from the bond forged in blood and trust. And as dawn began to rise, the world felt different. For the frightened alien, girl had found her protector, and the human had found something even greater. A reason to keep fighting.